Okay, the other question. Okay, so this is the ultimate question. So how long have you been trying to hire for UX talents? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months or more? I think if it's 9 months or more, that's pretty bad.
6 months, yeah. How long have you been trying to hire people? 6
I want
months,
to see
3 months.
how painful is the pain point.
3 months is a lot. 6.5 years. I hope you guys found one already. on what?
Maybe we'll just leave the poll on, and then in the middle we'll see what happens.
They can keep on participate.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Elaine, and thank you for coming. So we have a Stanley live today from Domain 7. So it's a local company in Vancouver. It's an agency, and Stanley is the VP of Experience Design, who is worked in a diverse range of industries. And Stanley is also from SFU Seattle, right? I know there's a lot of SFU grads around this area. Yeah, so Stanley has a great deal of experience, like in the industry, and yeah, I just talked to Stanley through the IxDA network, and we got in touch, and I thought it would be great for Stanley, having his breadth of experience, to share with everyone how Stanley, you mentioned that you're restructuring your company right now to be able to absorb more emerging talent. Okay, that's how you describe them. Emerging talent, either they are just getting into the industry or they're changing careers, right? Okay, I'll let you explain more a bit about your background. Okay, so maybe first tell us a little bit about what you do as VP of Experience Design at Domain 7.
Yeah, hey everyone, thanks for joining us this evening or morning, depending on where you are, and hearing me ramble for the next hour. So at Domain 7, I lead the design team here. We are a team of about 20 strong designers. And a lot of the work we do is in the innovation and what I call transformation design space. So we're very interested in helping organizations not just adopt new technology, but shift their organizations as well to fully harness the capacities and opportunities that technology offers. So an example I often say is, like, if you're going to build a new CMS or a new CRM, you don't just want to adopt the tech. You actually need to function differently within your organization and shift the way you behave to fully leverage, the level of access to information or access to control or access to, different types of services that's now available throughout the organization. So we really want to work on both ends, both the technology space as well as the people space, to really bring change holistically within different types of settings. We are also very focused in working within public sector and impact-oriented spaces as well. So you'll find us doing a lot of work here in the Lower Mainland with the various cities, a lot of nonprofits, as well as, kind of purpose-driven kind of for-profit organizations as well.
Oh, so maybe talk a little bit about how you got into UX even, right?
How I got into UX?
Yeah, like what's
oh man, I'm going to really show my age. When I first started out, UX wasn't even a thing. It was called new media because it was new, right? As opposed to like print and, all those different things. So I got my start just really curious about technology and really curious about, not just about how we build the technology, but how we make sure that it does what it's supposed to do, and the things that's going on there. And then from there, one thing led to another. UX became a thing. We bring in human factors and all of those different spaces. So I think I really saw my career grow alongside the industry as that matured as well. So I would say that my experience has been very different, I think, for a lot of folks in the room, in that I've been very fortunate to be at the beginning of that space and then mature along with the industry. I don't envy folks who are joining the industry today, where you feel like there's so much you have to learn and so much you have to catch up to. It's challenging to sieve out and filter out, the noise from the signal, in a sense, right? What you need to pay attention to and what you need to carry with you and what's just fluff. So that was a bit of my start. Okay,
great. And so in terms of Domain 7, like the breadth of work that you could do, so it's a consultancy, right? And you do more. There's also government work that I remember.
Yeah. We work a lot of government. Yeah.
How does that work? I mean, how is that different from commercial industry?
very different. My background is in startups and products, right, and all of those different spaces. And so working in public sector has been really, really eye-opening in that there's a lot of pluses and there's a lot of minuses. The pluses in working in the public sector is that generally the people you meet, I found, really care about the work they do and making the impact. People in tech don't join government, because it pays well. People work in government because you really get a chance to be oriented. Your incentives are oriented around your ability to provide better service to your residents, to your citizens, to the people you serve, and they really care. And so that's really nice to be able to partner with people like that who are able to kind of operate at that level and to make, kind of make change and see the change that you're making. And there's a big responsibility as well. If you're working in a city or province like British Columbia is about 2 million people, if you're going to provide some sort of provincial service on your platform, 2 million people have really no choice but to use whatever it is we're building, good or bad. And so we probably want it to be good. And so the responsibilities we have are quite substantial there as well. And there are challenges in working in public sector, right? Public sector is slow. It moves very, very slowly. There is a lot of constraint, both in terms of resources and in other areas. There's a lot of thinking that's very set, and it might be very conservative in different places as well. And I would say that it's often for good reason. You can move fast and break things when moving fast and breaking things might, in the worst case, kill someone, especially if you're working in healthcare as an example for hospital, like some sort of hospital system. And so there's a lot of deliberate care and deliberation and careful thought that you need to bring. And there's a lot of kind of rationalization that you need to bring within the space as well. And so it really challenges your ability as a designer to communicate well, to build influence, build partnerships, and really flesh out the other side of design practice that you don't really learn in design school, whether you went to a degree program or you went to a boot camp. That aspect is such a big part of design practice. And so working in public sector really pushes you to ensure you hone your craft in that dimension as well.
Okay, great. So great that everyone knows a little bit about your background, your context. So let's dive right into the topic for today. So the topic is, so how many of you here who are hirers find it like really hard to find people that you want? We see the internet is flooded with like job descriptions that senior designers have become 3 to 5 years for some reason. Like during the 90s, it was like 15 to 20 years of senior designers, for example, it just came down, right? So according to a survey on pay scale, I think maybe 70 to 80% of the market right now are junior people, which is like less than 3 to 4 years of experience, okay? So we want to address this issue because we think a lot of the hires are just waiting and waiting and waiting. So Stanley, why don't you give us your thought about, why is it so hard to find people right now? Hire 5 years and above, that's what everybody's posting.
I mean, I'm interested in the people in the room, the other folks here who are hiring managers as well. I think we all share a very similar experience in terms of the needs that is there. I think one of the biggest things is that the demand is tremendous, right? With design thinking and a lot of the advent of, that sort of practices, it is a non-negotiable in business today that design practice is important for any sort of business in terms of how you approach problems, how you solve them, how you build things forward. Technology is having a larger place in a lot of industries and businesses as well. A lot of organizations are building their own technology teams to be able to manage and develop and iterate upon their own platforms and how that moves forward. And so the demand on design is huge, right? That everyone wants designers, and especially if you are building a new team, the right thing to do is to hire a senior designer, right? To start up those teams. So I think there's a lot of pressure from there in terms of new teams that are being formed and the demand for senior or executive level design talent to build out the capacities there. I think there's the other side of this, and Elaine, we talked a little bit about this, when we talked, earlier a month ago. There's also the other side of organizations who are looking to scale and looking to grow bigger, right? You have maybe 2 designers on your staff right now, and you now realize and understand we need more designers, right? I have 1 or 2 senior designers. They're doing really well. I see the impact. I see the value. We need our teams to be bigger. We need our teams to grow. And you start to realize, let's get more of these people, right? Let's slot them into the different places within our organizations. And so from 2 senior designers, you now want 5, you want 6, you want 10. And a lot of teams I've seen are looking to grow their teams that way as well. And I can see why. From a business perspective, is straightforward, right? You have someone who's experienced, who knows how stuff is done, how stuff needs to be done, and what does it look like to have someone who you know is trustworthy and ready to hit the ground running. Bring them in, drop them in a problem, and let them go, right? But I think as you've seen, Elaine, as well, the challenge is that there isn't enough of those folks to go around, and the folks who are there are extremely competitive right now in the employment market, in terms of salary numbers, in terms of comp, in terms of expectations, types of things that people want to work on, and things like that. So it can become really, really challenging. So in a lot of ways, I think for those of us here who might be looking for work, it is a happy problem in a lot of ways that the demand is there. But for those of us who are hiring, or those of us who are early in our careers, it's a different type of challenge, right? In terms of how we can ensure that we have find the jobs that we enjoy, or can build the teams that we are looking to bring together.
So just some context, okay? So if you just go on LinkedIn, the number of UX jobs in Canada alone is maybe 25,000, and the US is 10 times of that number. It's 250,000 jobs, okay? And all of them, almost all of them, I would say maybe 80 or 90% of the jobs are senior designers, 3 to 5 years, okay? All right, so Stanley, so interesting. Well, you say it might be a happy problem, but what we see is not only the demand for hiring UX is huge, the people who wants to enter UX is huge too. So it's demand on both sides, but it's not connecting somehow, right? We at IxDA Vancouver, like even last year, all our events are targeted to like younger folks coming into the industry, career changers, junior designers. Everybody tells us they can't land a job. Okay, so that's a very interesting phenomenon, right? Maybe can you talk to that? Like what is it that some junior or emerging designers or career changers, what skills don't they have that you guys as senior people are not willing to hire, so that those of you who are the aspiring designers, maybe you can listen to what the hires want. And feel free, the audience, also to comment in the chat boxes as well.
Yeah.
Like, what are
to
you
be clear.
Yeah.
Sorry. So go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead. Yes.
I was going to say, just to be clear, we do hire kind of emerging designers on our team as well, and I'm very interested in that. And that's an area that I'm very invested in, and I care a lot about in terms of how our teams can grow. And I hope, I think we'll get to talk a little bit more, in today's session as well, in terms of why that is important. And there's a couple of challenges, right? I think, like I said, one of the big challenges for a lot of design teams is in terms of their maturity of practice and the level of scale that they have within their teams. And so if they have an immature organizational structure, then there isn't a lot of support and there isn't a lot of pieces in place that allows those teams, to allow the individuals to grow and allow room for emerging talent to be able to learn on the job and get better and grow while delivering value within the organization. And so that recognition isn't there. And so, and this is a thing that I think that Elaine, why we wanted to have this session and have this conversation with everyone here in the room, is that, I think we often discuss a lot about, okay, you're emerging talent, you just got out of boot camp, or you just graduated school. This is how, if you have these tricks and these portfolio, tips and all that kind of stuff, you will find a job. On one hand, like there is stuff that we can learn and as in terms of getting better in that respect. I think there's on the other side, there's actually a really big problem in terms of maturity of organizations that as hiring managers, we need to look at and see, why is it that our organization is not ready to bring on emerging talent? Why is it that we are not ready to develop that space and create opportunities within that environment? And I think the immaturity of design organizations across the board in a lot of organizations is the reason for that. And so being able to invest within that space and invest in that kind of capacity is really important. And I think there's a couple of really good reasons why emerging talent is valuable within an organization, and why as hiring managers or as design leaders, we really need to spend time to develop that. And there's a couple of really important things here. And I think, I've seen this firsthand within our own organization as we've started to grow. When I first started leading this team, we were a team of seniors and there were problems with that, right? And being able to bring on like greater numbers of emerging talent has helped us address, I think, some of those challenges. And I would say, I don't think that our organization is perfect at this. I don't think I'm perfect at this. I think I've had a lot of challenges and a lot of things that I've learned, a lot of mistakes I've made, and a lot of things that I'm looking to do better as we continue to scale and grow our organization over time. But let's talk about like what's the value? Like, why should we consider kind of emerging talent on our staff. And there's a couple of good ones. And for hiring managers, I hope there's motivation to consider how you want to grow your team. And I think for the emerging talent in the room is to consider what's the business case for your value that you're going to bring within those organizations, and how you can reflect, I think, that value in your conversations when you go for an interview, or you're doing a session, or you're talking to someone, and be able to understand that. So there's a couple of things. One is that emerging talent bring a lot of energy. If you've worked in a team of senior designers for a long time, I mean, those of us here who've done that, like there's jadedness, there's frustration, there's a sense of a lot of repetition. There is a sense of like, well, I've solved this problem 10,000 times. I'm just going to do that same thing that has worked for me, the last 10,000 times to solve this particular problem. And so that sense of jadedness and a lack of momentum is something that can be very prevalent in a lot of design teams where you've had a bunch of like mid or senior level designers that make up the majority of that room. And so junior talent or emerging talent add a lot of value within that space, because you're going to come in without a lot of perspective and a lot of knowledge, but you have a lot of curiosity, you have a lot of energy, and you have a lot of desire to learn. And you're going to ask, honestly, a lot of really dumb questions. And that's really good, because those dumb questions are going to challenge the fundamentals of someone who may have done this for the last 10 or 20 years of their career, and get them to take a step back and like, oh, that's a good question. Why do we do it that way? I've always done it this way and it's worked, but like, does it have to continue to be this way? Is this the only way for us to move forward? So I think that's a really, really important kind of value and challenge that you bring to the team in asking those questions. And I think if anyone here is interested in scaling and maturing your team over time, that's a really critical aspect of that, in considering creating those opportunities and creating those serendipitous moments for that sort of value to show up. And so that's one. Yeah, sorry.
We've been talking to some senior people and they're like, we have no time to train. We're so busy already, right? And ramping up the emerging talents will take like 12 to 18 months. We don't have time. Like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think the flip side of that is that when you talk to those same, like senior people on the teams and stuff like that, is, do you like every aspect of your job, right? Do you like going in and updating your design tokens in Figma every single time? Do you like, like working on, like maybe you enjoy building your the initial design system and setting up, the initial structures, but there is a lot of work that comes after that in terms of increasing coverage of your system across your platform, across your products. Do you enjoy doing that? Right? Some people may say yes. I'll say a lot of people might say no, because they enjoy the initial process of structuring and creating that platform at first. And then there is repetition and there's regular kind of rhythms that come in of that. Not to say that's not valuable work. It's important work because you want that coverage, et cetera. I'm just using this as one example. But someone else who is emerging talent who come in and says like, I've heard about this design system thing and I need to learn, is going to see that and it's like, oh, I can work at progressing the coverage of the design system across this platform. That's very valuable stuff, right? For someone from that experience level, from that standpoint. So I think there's a way of looking at this here where there's a lot of work that you do. You're really, really busy. Do you enjoy every bit of it? Are there portions of it that you can break out that it's not that interesting to you, but it's actually really valuable for someone else and is really good kind of career development for them as well? And that's such a prime opportunity to bring someone else into the picture to do that.
That's a really good point, because I remember like 15, 20 years ago when I was a junior, you cut foam core boards, right? As a junior person. But nowadays it seemed like the whole, like all the design skill collapsed into like one person. Like there's less of a differentiation between different types of design UX work that's for a junior, mid-level, senior. Why do you think that's the case?
I think there's many different reasons. And I was, before we started, Elaine, I'm just give visibility for the room. I feel like I'll say some things today that will probably piss some people off, and I apologize in advance. Know that it is purely just my opinion. And I can be wrong. Please disagree with me. I would love to hear your opinions, and your perspective on how you've seen it and how you've experienced it. So know that I have the privilege of a platform here where my voice is being heard, but I don't pretend that mine's the only perspective or the right perspective. I'm just sharing mine. So to your point, I think the challenge of like what's the differentiation between different roles and things like that. I think that is part of the journey of a maturing design practice across different organizations. For a very long time, designers, if you look at from a historical perspective, as far back as you want to go, designers have always been somewhat solitary in some sense, right? That the one architect or that one, copywriter or that one whoever, and you might have small design teams or small partnerships, but it's really focused on the creative and the generative activity and things like that. I think as the value of design has increased, our teams have increased, the roles have increased, there's more specializations that's emerged, there's more things that come out of that. And so I think there's an increasing definition. If you go to any design management kind of conference or books and things like that, you'll see one of the really big things that's emerging is that increasing sense of definition that needs to be created for different levels and different roles and different functions. And so I think as part of a maturing design organization, that's something that needs to happen, is you start to ask the question of, who are the people that we need, why, and what roles do they fill? And there are, like any good design problem, there are constraints that's going to come into the picture, right? Such as the fact that I have a post, for a design hire for the last 6 months and I haven't been able to fill it. That's a constraint. Given that constraint, how do I need to make a different decision of how I'm going to staff up my team, right? So I think a big part of this is also a response to those constraints and a response to some of those things that's there. I just want to add one thing as well, just to the earlier point of what we were talking about earlier, is that one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And so when you create an opportunity to pair a senior designer with someone who's emerging, that creates a really good dynamic where you are actually creating an opportunity for the senior designer to refine their understanding of their craft and their ability to communicate it. I think as I saw some comments, sorry, you folks are typing like big paragraphs of comments and haven't been able to read it, but I did see something about communication and soft skills. And that is absolutely true, right? I think most senior or executive level designers here will agree that I think 50%, if not more, of our craft as designers and our success as designers come from our ability not just to create good solutions, but to create alignment and buy-in for those solutions, right? There's no point creating a really good solution if no one believes you that it's actually good and it actually aligns with the purposes of the organization. So, being able to have a senior designer have the opportunity to refine the understanding of the craft, to communicate it with someone else, to teach someone else, it's actually a really good professional development angle there as well. And I've seen a lot of opportunity in where I've created those pairings and have been able to generate more engagement from senior level staff who may have been jaded, who are tired of doing the same work, who are now presented with a different problem and start to realize their own limitations, right? Of asking themselves, why have I done it this way for the last 10 years? Is there a different way that I should be approaching this problem? And so being able to pair an emerging talent along with that is such a great opportunity to kind of create professional development opportunities as well. Now, to your point, Elaine, is it necessary for us to have to create a robust structure and robust kind of definitions for different roles and seniorities from the get-go? It doesn't have to be. I think creating pairs of opportunity for pairing in design is a really good opportunity in itself for us to, in a really quick way, to bring emerging talent into the room. So for every senior designer, pair them up with someone who's emerging. Both as an opportunity for, again, like I said, that career development, but on the other hand as well, an opportunity for the emerging talent to shadow and see what does good design practice look like. What does someone who's done this work for the last 10 years, what have they learned? How do they show up? How do they communicate? There's a lot of important aspects there. And within that, they will find that dynamic, right? A responsible senior would then look at what are the work that I can offload? What are the opportunities that I can transfer to this individual? For example, there's that design system, the difference between building a design system and increasing coverage of a design system. There's a really good opportunity there, right? To translate kind of the craft there that someone else can then take on and scale your efforts and be a multiplier for, as a senior person, multiply your effects, right? And for the emerging talent, for them to see as someone just mentioned here, the Jedi Padawan relationship, absolutely, right? That you have the learning opportunity to learn from someone who's been at it for a really long time and has, seen things and done things and have wisdom to offer you as well.
Yeah, so it's like an apprenticeship model, right? And so how do you do it at Domain 7? What are some strategies that you take, to allow you to, bring in some of the junior or emerging talents?
Mhm. I would say it's not perfect. I see a couple of people here that I've spoken to or may have worked on my teams before, and I'll say, they will tell you firsthand, like, it's not perfect. There are challenges, there are a lot of problems. I'll say from my lived experience, one of the biggest challenges is making the business case for emerging talent and why that's necessary within your organization. There's a number of things that you can quantify and that you can, kind of build a balance sheet around, or, in terms of P&L for that. But there are also a lot of unquantifiables that really tests and challenges my ability, right, to build alignment around, around things like, for example, generating more engagement from our senior staff, from creating more opportunities for cross-pollination of knowledge, of challenging assumptions. One of the things I've been proud of is that new hires and emerging talent have been the ones who've consistently challenged our team in our understanding of what sort of tools are appropriate. What are the new cool ways of doing things? Why we should be doing Figma instead of Sketch. And so, because like I said, no offense to all the senior people in the room, but we can be pretty stubborn about the tools that we use, right? I know I was very stubborn, right? Photoshop to Sketch was a painful transition for me. And then I have, some people who are in this room as well who've convinced me to go from Sketch to Figma, and that was painful for me as well. But it's necessary, right? Because there is that opportunity, and there is that evolution of that tool set that improves the efficiency on our team. So the influx of fresh ideas is really, really valuable. But anyway, back to your question, is building the business case. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for me. And so building alignment within our organization around what some of those things look like, and creating a structure, and ensuring, at least for us as an agency, ensuring that they're being able to demonstrate the cost, the additional costs, and how that actually results in increased value. And one of the, at least I'll say for an agency for us, one of the arguments I've made and have been successful in is discussing around the impact of multiplication effects. So if you have if you have a team of, let's say, three senior designers, they should not be just impacting one or two initiatives or one or two projects. By having a junior staff, we can allow them to mentor and support those juniors and multiply their effects, not just on those individuals, but on those initiatives or projects those individuals, the junior individuals, are involved in as well. And so instead of having one senior being able to influence one, they're now able to influence two or maybe three. And because we all know that senior talent is hard to come by, that sort of multiplication effects can be very important and very a good way for us to continue scaling our team, while being able to add to our headcount in a way that we require in order to sustain our projects. And so your team is going to have a different argument and a different business case, but finding that alignment is going to be very important in justifying the headcount and what some of those things look like. And then from there, I think, is the people relationships, right? When you bring in emerging talent to partner with senior staff who've never been in a mentoring or coaching relationship with someone else will find it very challenging. And so then my role as a manager, as a people leader, then is to develop, hey, this is your professional development opportunity, right? This is how you're going to develop your ability in terms of design communication, in terms of mentorship, in terms of coaching. This is what it looks like to increase your impact, increase your kind of scope of influence, is to develop those skills and develop the ability and capacity to do that. So it's kind of a two-sided kind of problem in some sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just now, I think some of the questions, which we'll dive into more in the Q&A, but I just quickly looked at some about, is it worth the risk of bringing in junior people? How do you respond to that? Like, so it seems like for some senior people, they think, oh, if I bring in this person who's not seasoned, it will take me more work, to bring them in than not, right?
Yeah, and I think that challenge that starts to, people who know me will say I'm very prone to philosophical questions, existential questions. This is one of them. It comes back down to, like, what is a good designer? What is good design? What do you think that is? And then translating that into an understanding of what's the profile of the kind of people that you want to bring aboard, and understanding that. So I think it comes down to your hiring process. I'll say for our team and our approach, we are extremely picky when it comes to emerging talent that we bring on board. And I'm happy to share, like, what that looks like for what my criteria or my profile looks like. And a lot of that is about an individual who has their fundamentals down, really, really well, has really, really strong fundamentals. You need to know your craft. You need to know why. You need to know the methodologies, and you need to know the pieces, in there. Can
you dive deeper? Like, for example, somebody who's taken a boot camp, a 3-month boot camp, is that fundamentals for you? Like what do you mean by the fundamentals?
Can you do the work, right?
Okay.
Like, do you understand? And not just one, it's like, can you do the work, right? And your case studies and all that will show you. I'll say for boot camps, and again, I hope I don't offend anyone here, but like when it comes to boot camps, do you know why you've chosen this methodology and this approach? And that's a question I always ask: is why? Why this? Why not that? Do you understand the weaknesses and the strengths of this methodology? When would you use it? When would you not? So to me, that's where fundamentals come in. It's not just about you doing what a journey map looks like and your ability to execute that well, because that's important too. But like, do you have to use a journey map? Why? Why not? Do you understand what it looks like and when it's appropriate and when it's not? Now, you have to calibrate your expectations, right? When you're running an interview for that, they're obviously not going to get it right every single time, and they're not going to be able to like give you the perfect answer because, well, you need experience to understand that. But if you find someone who has demonstrated the ability to navigate that question, who has thought about it, and has have demonstrated the ability to reason through that, through your conversation, then that's how you know someone who's ready to learn, right? Because they know how to learn, they know how to progress, they know where they need to grow in, and that's why you, at the end of the day, you really want to look for in emerging talent is someone who's demonstrated ability and proven ability to learn and develop themselves, and is able to continue doing that. And the second piece from an interview perspective or hiring perspective you want to look at as well is, are you the right organization for them? Everyone's going to have different learning styles and different ways of learning, different types of work that they are interested in and they're excited about and are able to give energy to. Are you the organization that can offer them that? So I think there's a discrimination you need to do that as well to understand whether you have the right offerings for them and are able in a position to help them grow. Because the case might be that that you're not the right place to grow and they're not able to learn, and you are not going to get the value from them in that, their ability to ramp up, right, in terms of their skill set and their experience really quickly. And that's what you want, right? Because you want them to get to a level where they're proficient and independent as soon as possible. And if you are the right place that helps them learn, whether it's in terms of learning styles or types of problems, then you're going to get that value from them a lot quicker.
Which brings me to one question. It's career changers. There are special species. Because some career changes, they might be in another industry for 5 years, like advertising, marketing, right? It could be even in programming or, I don't know, sales or hospitality. And then they want to become a UX designer and they go through a boot camp. How do you hire these type of people? Like, or are they? If they don't have a design background, like traditional design background.
I love people who have switched careers. One of them is in this room who I've worked with before, but I'll not out them. I love people who switch careers. I think it is an incredible opportunity and something that is often missed. And I'll say I've been guilty of that for a long time as well. And so I think one of the things about people who've come from a different career, for example, like I love designers who come from a background in retail, right? I would say most designers who come from, boot camps, most designers who come from 4-year design programs like me, I've done way too much design school. I've done, 3 years of design school in Singapore, 4 years in Canada, 2 more years in the US. The consistent pattern I've seen through all of them, and over, 2 decades is that we suck at communication. Design school is really good at craft and really good at you getting into the room and like doing your work in the studio in a corner of, of your studio. But what design schools often don't invest in is your ability to communicate and how you're going to show up and how you read the room and understand what's going on. And what I've seen is that people who come from retail, from customer support, from customer success and those sort of fields, I don't need to teach them. No one needs to teach them. They get it. They've been doing that for the last 5, 6, 3 years, however long they've been, involved in that field. They know how they understand customer service. They understand how to read a room. They understand how to, read the emotions of a customer and how to respond appropriately. And that is such an important skill that is incredibly hard to teach, someone. And so I would say that, and we were just talking about this, before we started this session as well, the career trajectory and growth trajectory of people who've come in mid-career versus someone who's fresh out of school, like, 4-year program, design school and all of that is very, very different. Because I would say if I was to look at, the graduate from 4-year school and coming out, out of that, let's take that as a linear growth path, the baseline, for what career growth looks like for you. Someone who's coming in mid-career might be starting out a little bit later, right? And you still need to start them from probably, kind of a junior role because you still need to get your basics down, right? You need to you may know how to use Figma, the methodologies, but you need to hone your craft. You need to get that experience. You need to figure a lot of that stuff out. But what I often see is that they grow in their career extremely quickly because their kind of human fundamentals, right, of communication, of partnership building, of alignment building already exists, as I'm sure a lot of folks here have mentioned in the chat. And so there, so as they grow in their technical skills, which is easy to learn, right? It just takes a lot of practice, and you just need some good mentorship and coaching. They already have the soft skills and the interpersonal skills that allows them to leverage their technical skills well. And so their career trajectory, I often find, is very different. Like, it can be discouraging to start in a junior role, especially if you've had, a long career in a different industry that you're switching from. It can be discouraging. It feels like you're starting from scratch. But I promise you that if you have the right combination of skills there, and you have the right investment you've made in yourself and in your partnerships with other people, your career trajectory is going to look very different, and your ability to grow is going to be very different as well. And the one thing I'll say, for no matter where you come from, whatever your first, wherever your background is, and the first design job you're going to look for, always choose the job based on the manager. I'll say that for myself as well. I'll never forget my first manager and the influence that they had on me. And always pick the job, especially your first job, on your manager, because you're going to learn so much, right, in terms of fundamentals. Someone who's going to invest the time and effort in nurturing and developing you, they will set your career up, for the longest time, into your future. So that'll be my encouragement, and especially for folks who are mid-career switching, because that makes a really, really big difference for you.
Well, because this time we have a lot of senior people in the room, I will just open up the floor earlier for them to ask questions directly, okay? All right, who wants to start? I see a lot of people already posted the questions here. Anyone? Yeah, we want it to be interactive as well. Or shall we just go?
I guess I can break the ice from Montreal.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I think I resonate with most of what Stanley has mentioned. I think it's true that often design is taught in like fine art school, especially. That's a critique that like Don Norman's been doing lately. Tends to be based on one type of doing things, and like the studio work and critique. But I wouldn't be as harsh as him towards like in my critique saying, meaning that I think it still develops a lot of interesting, like a critique, let's say, which comes from fine arts, is a good way to start to articulate your vocabulary and to start talking about what makes good design, what makes it a better design. And yeah, and I think that the soft skills are really important, and they could also be integrated more into like a design curriculum, because often I think that's what managers expect from more senior people, ability to bring them into a meeting, and that they do something wise the first time around, or at least they're gonna like according to what is expected. Yeah, and I think of course, like young people bring in energy. You guys haven't spoke much about like internships, and how like internships become also like a hiring kind of like bridge. Yeah. And I think, well, obviously it makes it also for cheap labor at the beginning, but often it allows you allows managers to be able to evaluate, and so at the end of the internship, people have shown that they are a good fit, often continue. Yeah, so those were my first few words.
No, thanks. Thank you, Felix. I completely agree. And yeah, coming from someone who's done those schools, like I completely agree with you. I was probably a little bit harsh, a bit of a generalist. I was trying to encourage everyone here who didn't go to those 4-year schools. But I agree with you. I think there's a benefit to those programs as well, for sure. And yeah.
So Felix, you mentioned that you're doing a study, right? Are you doing some research or?
Yeah, well, I'm actually trying to put together the first UX design undergrad in the province of Quebec. Ontario has 5 programs which are like analogous to what we're trying to put together. And for many different reasons, we got design schools already, mostly in fine art faculties. One of them is a faculty of aménagement, which was a translation of Berkeley's environmental design, I think, faculty. and there's never been interaction or UX design. Because in the undergrad level, because it's like a hustle with trying to build it with a ministry to bring a new degree. It's like a 2-year process. Sometimes they take away of some of your budget if you like take less professors on one program or the other. So for many reasons, there's always been like graphic design, industrial design, interior design, but no interaction or UX design. There's there's graduate programs. There's 3 smaller graduate programs. One of them is actually in a design school, and 2 of them are one in an engineering school, and one of them is in a business school. So it's also some kind of like, it's surprising. Right now I'm working with another engineering school, which are they are willing to fill that gap, and we're trying to bring that up. So that's why today and Monday and Thursday next week again, I'm meeting with doing roundtables with the industry people who hire UX here in Montreal, and also I brought in Jennifer Fraser from Academian, which is still in Quebec but closer to Ottawa and Ontario, who's a VP experience there. And yeah, so it resonates actually with Stanley as mentioned, and the importance of soft skills and being able to communicate and work with engineers. So that's why also another aspect we try to bring to our curriculum, since we have software engineers, and within the school we want to try to bring them together with some projects, because I think it's also another important skill to be able to work closely with developers, since that's what we do often, well, most of the time, if not all of the time, in the industry. And trying to teach them also what is product strategy, because it's something you need to be able to take the different perspectives, I guess, as a designer.
Yeah. So Stanley, sometimes I see the job postings that are out there is like a unicorn, right? You need the soft skills, you need the hard skills, you need the HTML, you need the, it's like research skills, like strategy skills, like all in one almost. Like, how do you, like, what do you have any response to that? It seems like some, and I know the junior designers are like, well, I only know maybe 1/4 of this, like, so should I apply or not apply, right?
I mean, it's a classic saying, right? Like before we continue, like Felix, I just want to say I'm so envious of the opportunity you have to be building a new design program, like in this moment when we're all learning so much about how the education needs to shift. And I love like the picture you've drawn there of how design is being taught in untraditional faculties like engineering, business, and all of that. Like, I think that's the beauty of design practice, right? It really permeates and cuts across kind of disciplines and industries. And like an engineering school is going to teach design differently from like a business school, from another school, and like that's the beauty of it. And I think that's really wonderful.
Thanks.
Elaine, to your point, there's this classic saying of like, if you meet maybe 50% of requirements, just apply, because the hiring managers are unrealistic anyway. I think that's true. I think it's something that I'm very cognizant about. I don't think we have it perfect on our team either, but to just recognize that you don't want to ask for too much, and you want to kind of be precise in what you're looking for as well. And I would say that, as a candidate, like, you want to evaluate the opportunities and the kind of maturity that's available. I think it was Felix here that mentioned, like you want to pick the manager and the manager's manager, right? And that's about the design maturity in an organization, and that's absolutely true. And so it's a red flag when you see a role that's like, oh, I want you to do like marketing and do my brand, and I want you to figure out like the user flow for the onboarding for new customers, and like, I want you to figure out the workflow for our application as well. Like, that's too much. And so that represents a level of immaturity in an organization, in that they don't know what they want. They're probably just throwing buzzwords. They have advisors who are whispering in their ear telling them, what design should be able to do, and they're throwing all that into the JD. So it should be a red flag for you to just watch out for that. But I'll say at the end of the day, just apply. Let them decide. Don't disqualify yourself. Let them decide if you are the fit and you are what they're looking for. And you never know who's going to respond. So, I mean, it makes more work for me because I have more applications to filter, but like, that's my problem, right? So just try applications.
Great. Okay. Anybody else in the room who wants to ask?
I do have a question for Stanley, if I may, because I have been looking at the the comment section. I think people are just so excited talking about and then expressing the points. In terms of the questions, I really have only two. First is, how do we balance the communication skills versus hard skill crafts when we are looking for a senior designers? I'm asking from a higher point of view. For example, if I'm hiring a senior designer, how do I judge if this person needs to be on a really good crafting skill versus a communication skill?
Right. So do you mean like, what should you value more?
Yeah.
Or how do you determine? How do you determine
what
where
should
they're strong in?
What should I value more?
Right. It depends on what work you are looking to staff. And this is why I say like your staffing strategy is really important, right? So for example, if you have like the apprenticeship thing, which I think a lot of folks are really excited about, like that pairing, the Jedi Padawan kind of model, then I'll say like your hard skills are probably more important, and the soft skills, or some people I've heard call them permanent skills, because that's really what they are. They never go away. Your permanent skills are maybe slightly less important, because you can then develop that in that relationship, right? That relational connection and that partnership is really important to develop that. So you might want to weigh it that way, right? But because you have the hard skills, you can then take on more of the work, and because you have the mentoring relationship, it's easier to develop those permanent skills, which is good. But another case might be where you don't have that partnered pattern. Maybe the mentoring relationships is less direct, right? You're not directly connected to someone, they're part of a larger team where you have a ratio of like senior designers and emerging designers. And then you may have a different pattern there. And that in that case, where maybe the emerging designers are expected to have a little bit more autonomy, then you might have a higher expectation in terms of communication, in terms of, how they show up in the meeting and things like that, where you might want to value that more as well. So I think it really comes down to your staffing kind of pattern and kind of approach you're taking there. I think a really important thing here as well from a hiring manager's perspective is that I just mentioned someone here is like, we have to wear a lot of hats, and that's true, because now we're taking the role of an educator in order for you to get the most value of someone who's early in your career. Because to be really crass, right, from a business perspective, like to be really crass, like the real value of bringing someone with emerging talent in your organization is you want to find a one that everyone else misses, right? You get them in your organization cheap, and then they grow up in your organization, and you get value from them along the way. Like from a financial perspective, that's why you want like an emerging talent in your organization. And you only get that value if you're investing in their development and training, right? If you don't do that, then they're never going to grow, and you're just going to put in more work, to this person, to manage this person, then the value you're going to get from them, right? So again, I don't like to think this way, but from a business perspective, like this is like where the value comes in. And so you want to manage that. And so you need to think like an instructor, you need to think like a teacher, you need to think about, the learning environment and the learning paradigms and where's most effective for them to develop and grow. And that's where I think it's good for the business. It's also good for an individual, right? Because you as an emerging talent is joining an organization, if you know that you're invested in learning, you're going to grow and your career will develop. If an organization doesn't understand that, then you're forever going to be at that level, right? Because that's all they expect you to be doing, and that's unfortunate in a lot of ways.
Right.
And you know how like UX like designers sometimes like people are very pixel,
Perfect.
pixel perfect and anal retentive. Right? It's a very different role when you try to delegate and let go and educate other people to let them do the work instead of you pushing pixels yourselves, right? How do you manage it?
I would say like it's part of the learning journey of any like senior designer that's moving up. I think that's part of the work. I think every organization is going to be slightly different, and the threshold where that happens is going to be different as well. But at some point, you're going to be more effective as someone who's multiplying your impact across multiple people rather than you being directly in the work. Not always true for everyone, and not always true for every career path, obviously. But I think for a lot of organizations, that is true at some point, wherever that point might be. And so it depends on, for you as an individual in terms of your career, how you want to develop in those directions. And I'll say that someone gave me this advice a very long time ago. A creative director gave me this advice a long, long time ago, that one of the hardest things to do as a design leader is seeing other people succeed. sounds very crass. And but like, it's like when you grow your career, it's all about your portfolio, it's all about your craft, it's all about your work, it's all about like, I've done this and it looks cool and I get to tell people I did this, right? At some point in your career, it's not about me getting opportunities to do these things. It's about me creating opportunities for my team and I allow them to succeed. And that when they get to put in a portfolio and they are proud of it, I'm proud of them. And that's a transition that design leaders need to make. And if you're not able to make that transition, like it's gonna be very bitter for you, and it's gonna be very bitter for other people. And so I'm constantly jealous of my team and the work that they're doing, and I'm proud of that, right? I have to be, and that's no matter how I know I'm doing my job. When I see someone doing a piece of work and I'm like, darn it, I wish I did that, right? And I'm so glad you got to do it. And so I think that's really, really important, and that's a transition that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Daniel, I think you had a second question, right?
Yeah, you had a second.
Yes, I do. So I want to ask this question from a small, medium-sized business perspective. When is a good time to start thinking bringing in a senior designer or scaling up the team? As I imagine, a lot of times we're talking about corporations or agency that they already have a budget or people already there to give that partner up sort of training program. Imagine I'm just a family business, and then I'm thinking about scaling up my team. Who should I look for, or what type of quality do you recommend that I should be looking for on the senior designers? Thanks.
On the senior design side?
Yeah, senior designers.
I think it depends on the strategy of your business and how important design is to your organization and what size you require. So if you know that you will need a design team of 10 by the end of this year, or maybe the end of next year, for example, then you're looking to make your first hire, then you absolutely should be hiring a senior designer who has some potential to step into leadership or a desire to step into leadership or prior experience to do that, because you want them to set the tone for your business and to set the structures in place early for you to scale a team to that size, right, to that destination. But let's say if you're a small business, they're like, I only ever need one designer, right? Then that changes the calculus, right? That changes the definition here. Do you actually need a senior designer who, is looking to grow their careers and build a team? Probably not. Maybe you'd be okay with a mid-level or even a junior designer that you can coach, right? So I think that's a different dynamic. And I think for folks who are early in their careers or emerging talent who are looking to find their first design jobs as well, I think you need to be very careful, because there's a flip side to you wanting to pick those jobs and understanding what are you stepping into, right? I'm probably wrong in saying this, but I'll say it because, I want someone to prove me wrong, is I don't think I've seen many occasions where, someone who's fresh from a boot camp or is fresh from school, who's joined, a startup or something like that as the first designer. Honestly, I've rarely seen that end well. And it's challenging because you're in an environment where your ability to defend and advocate for design is so important to create room for you to do the work. But you're so early in your career that you don't have the confidence and ability to do that well yet. You need someone else to look to for you to learn. And so, which is why I say like, there are a lot of those jobs around and it can be very tempting, but I would say like, if there's an option for you at all, or there's a choice for you at all, I would really not want to pick that as your first job. Like I said, pick the manager, pick a place that will allow you to grow, even if they pay slightly less. A living wage is absolutely necessary, obviously. But, I would rather pick the job with a good manager that will help you to grow and that will pay dividends in your career long-term because of the fundamentals you built in the first, 1-2 years of your career.
So to your question, sorry, everybody, how do you identify the person I'm talking to is a good manager or not? Like
Very good question.
What should I ask her? Like, are you nice or are you?
Can I hop in for a second?
Yeah.
I just wanted to step in because I think like from the 23 years I've been in the industry, the thing that I've learned the most is how to conduct like interviews from the employee side. I've never been a manager exactly for the reasons that Stanley has mentioned. I've learned early on in my career that I didn't want to manage people and like spend my energy there, because at the end of the week, I didn't felt I was achieving anything, and that was important for me to as a designer. So I've always stayed like a hands-on designer, and I mean it's an industry where there's a place for that as well, and it doesn't like stop you from like growing, I think evolving. But yeah, so I think it's important to, especially when you read the description, to try to figure out what's necessary in the organization for you to be able to do what the description tells you. Because it has happened to me many times where there simply isn't a way that you can possibly do your work in the context that they provide you. So you can ask, am I going to be able to, if you want to do some research to see the users, am I going to be able to work with the developers like hand in hand, or is it something that they're going to provide me all the everything that's already being worked out, and I need to just like paint wireframes, which is like, I think everyone, this interaction or UX designer's fear, or at least it has happened many times. So I think it's important to familiarize yourself with whatever material you've got available before you to prepare for an interview, and to understand what is needed for you to do that. And often you're gonna, like, you can tell right away, well, okay, they're gonna tell you, no, you actually are supposed to do research according to the description, but you can't really like see the client because you're in a department where you're insulated from the client because you're in the development team and you never see the client. So well, you're going to be a sad designer if you wanted to do some research as the posting wanted you to do so. It's I guess you can, I guess, do some research beforehand and prepare well for interviews and try to understand what each activity that really makes design a value for you, and that makes you like to go to work in the morning can be achieved.
I want the +1 everything. Sorry.
Can I just jump in here for a second, just for Felix's point? So I'm a headhunter in the technology space. And the problem is, Felix, is that lots of companies put out job descriptions, but the job descriptions aren't accurate reflections of what the person's going to be doing. So in terms of, unless you know someone in the company, you're not really going to be able to adequately prepare, other than what you can do. And I think shows a lot of skill on the part of the person interviewing, is actually ask a lot of questions so that you can determine, is this actually a good fit for what I want to do or not? You can't really judge it based on the job description.
No, exactly.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to kind of jump in with is, the topic of this is hiring people with 5+ years and so on. It's hard to do. Okay. So what I'd like to do, if I may, is just share. I've just hired a manager of UX with 20 years experience. And I'm doing a contract for a large US company that is growing its presence here in Vancouver. And I didn't wait for people to apply. I went out and sourced this person myself because I knew what the company was looking for. And that person, just for everybody's edification, so he's been around for 20 years, probably every 2 years, because I just looked at his resume, every 2 years, he switched jobs. He's been in gaming, he's been in agency work, he's done lots of different things. And so as a result, he's able to bring a very broad perspective to a job. And in this case, that's what we needed. And so therefore he was a good fit. So there are lots of people. I mean, Vancouver has, I've been in this business a long time. I know a lot of people in UI, UX, in interaction design, and there are a lot of skilled people with lots of experience. Of course, there are a lot of people trying to get into the business, and that's wonderful. There's a progression for how to do that. If somebody in a large company is trying to hire a senior person, I wouldn't bother applying for the role because the likelihood that you're going to be a good fit for it is pretty low. But certainly build up your experience over time. Anyway, I just wanted to share kind of a little bit of that, just so we have a sense of, so we're not just talking about the emerging talent, but we're also talking about, what is it that people have with, 5, 10, 15 years experience, because they are out there, and people are looking to hire those people.
Yeah, Rob, it seems like for the 5, 10, 15 years, you have to poach, you have to go grab them because they already have a job, right? It's not like they're floating around looking for a job.
This guy, actually, I didn't poach him. He was actually looking for a job. He was on a leave, and so I didn't actually poach him from somewhere else. He was actually available and looking. So,
I see.
but yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, as the candidate, you have to really, I think, understand what you want in a job. Are you looking for mentorship? Are you looking for to do cool stuff? Like, you know, what is it that you're looking for? And then try to find a company that fits with what you're looking for at this particular time. Now that may change over time, but you know, I think companies need to do a better job of knowing what they want, and the candidates themselves need to understand where they're at in their evolution as a designer and so on, and then be able to explain that and kind of convince someone that they're, you know, at the point where they can learn, they can bring more to the table than maybe they've done before. So
yeah,
anyway.
Robert, maybe you can share with us a little bit, because you're in the recruiting industry, right? Because it's just that I'm shocked to see that senior designer's definition is 3 to 5 years. It used to be 10, 15, 20 years. So apparently, you know, all the job descriptions are lowering kind of, you know, because maybe people aren't able to find people, right? What's your perspective?
I don't know. Like, I didn't look for a number of years of experience. I was
Yeah.
looking for certain things, particularly because so, and interestingly, with this manager, how we started off was I was looking for a senior. And so I interviewed a bunch of seniors and so on. And it didn't actually take me that long. It probably took me 3 months, and we're actually still, that's why I have hiring UX designer, because we're still hiring a senior, because this guy that we brought in with the 20 years experience, as you can imagine, was not only a senior designer, but he'd been a lead, he'd been the head of UX and so on and so forth. And so we actually brought him in as a manager, which was not what we were planning to do. So because he had so much experience, we brought him in as a manager, not as just a senior. And so we still have an opening for a senior. And yeah, so, you know, I understood what my client wanted to hire, and therefore I was able to kind of identify who was the best potential fit. And again, I probably interviewed maybe 10, 12 people. Like, it wasn't a lot. I like to go out and find people because I know what the client's looking for. So therefore I can sort of map what I'm looking for onto the person and go, I think that person's a good fit. Whereas as a candidate, if I'm you, or if I'm someone looking for a job, the job descriptions are so terrible. Like, essentially you want to have someone in the organization tell you what the job's really about. Like, hopefully you have a friend or a former colleague, leverage your network to the extent that you can. And that's why it's good to build up your LinkedIn network and connect with all the people that you've ever worked with and never studied with and so on, is because you can reach out to them and say, hey, I see you're working at such and such company. What are they really looking for? Because that's incredibly important. So, you know, I hope that's helpful, but that's kind of my perspective from the front lines, if you will.
Okay. Anyone
Just
else?
yeah, I would like to bounce on that. Well, I mean, I think that's the reason why I was mentioning that knowing which questions to ask during an interview are important, because it's all copy and paste from the same job description most of the time. It involves everything, and I think if you know what the work is or what you want to accomplish, then you can simply ask about those few things.
Yep.
And obviously, it's not. Because, well, here often it's going to be the first interview is going to be a phone interview with the HR people. That's just to see if like you're just like gonna pass to the second job interview, and then when the people you're going to be working with, they're the ones who are going to be able to answer you. And in my experience, they've been honest when there's something that's on the job description that it's not going to be feasible because of the organizational context, and they just like copied and pasted, they're going to tell you, and because it's not in their interest either to have you on board and to hire you and to spend all the money and time, and then have you leave after a month or 2 months or 6 months because you can really not do your job, or at least the job you wanted to accomplish. Yeah, so I think it's good that you also said that if all the job descriptions are the same, then it's more responsibility on the candidate side to try to find out.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Daniel, I just want to make sure that we address your original question, which is how do you tell a good manager?
Oh, right. Thank
but
you.
no, I just want to make sure we address that question too. But it's +1 to I think everything that Felix and Robert have mentioned there as well. And I think, you know, on one hand, like we talk about a lot of the strategies, but I just want to also like point out like we as a candidate, like you have a lot of choice and you have a lot of autonomy to kind of pick and to be picky about, you know, which teams are appropriate for you. And as I think Felix was pointing out there as well, it's having that understanding of like looking at the maturity of the organization and understanding their ability to support you in the type of design practice they have. And I think most important, as I said before, was like looking for a manager who's interested in teaching and is interested in developing you and interested in spending that time. So the awareness that they have of your skill set and how it contributes to the role, that's a fair question to ask, right? And to understand like how that fits. So I think I just want to say, like, I think that the interest in teaching and nurturing you, if you're early in your career, is a really, really important point to kind of watch out for. And I'll just add on what Robert was pointing out there earlier as well, that every single job I've had has been a referral in some way. And so that's a huge, that makes a huge difference. So you ensure that at the very least, your profile is not lost in a pile of resumes that's being, you know, put to the top in some way and some sort of consideration. So definitely expanding your network, whether on LinkedIn or in other places. It's not the only way. It's unfortunate, honestly, that's the problem, because there's more that as hiring managers that we need to do in terms of how we process applications and to be more fair in terms of how we do that. But in the current reality, referrals do help.
Oh, expand your network at IxDA.
That's right. Follow us right now.
All right. Any more questions?
Wait. So how do we know if that person that I am interviewing with is a good manager, Stanley?
How do you know is a good manager? I don't know. It depends on what you think a good manager is, right? It really starts from there. It's a lot of ways to spin that. But I'll say, like, to me, maybe if I'll just be very pointed, you know, from what we said earlier, is one is that you want to look at whether the organization has mature design practice. So there's a lot of what Felix was pointing out earlier around kind of understanding your manager's manager, the kind of process that they have, you know, are they honest? If, you know, as we were just talking about here, if people are copy and pasting the JDs, that's a red flag, right? It means that they don't have the maturity to understand what they want their designers to do, or they want their designers to do too much. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't join them, but you should be aware that that's what's happening, right? And that's the maturity or the lack thereof that they have. And then you make a choice based on that. So having a mature environment obviously is good, but immature environments also provides opportunities to grow. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So there are trade-offs there that you want to consider, right? Because in the immaturity, there's room for you to provide definition, for you to grow into and take responsibility and grow your career in that way as well. And on the other side is the manager. Are they willing to invest time in you? Do they know that you need coaching and training? Do they know that, you know, there's time that you're going to have to spend with you? Are you the very first kind of, you know, emerging talent hire that they're making? In which case, you know, then you have, if that is true, then there's more questions that you might want to ask about, you know, what kind of professional development and, you know, opportunities exist within the organization, what sort of mentorship and coaching practices that exist in the organization and stuff like that, that those things become important too.
Okay. I noticed.
How about hearing from some other senior hires here?
I think we have Dave ask a question before, and then we can address his question first. Dave, are you here?
Yep.
Yeah, and I noticed that you're curious about something. It's your time to ask Stanley face to face. Go ahead, my friend.
Stanley, because we're kind of in a hiring environment where it's a really, really hot market, and that leads to a situation where people will jump from company to company, and that ends up helping your career trajectory. So from the Domain 7 perspective, because you are, you know, kind of incubating and growing emerging talent, how has your approach changed in order to offer that kind of career trajectory when we're in this really, really hot hiring environment?
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, because that's a real challenge, right? And a real problem. I think if that's a question that's better answered by my team, but I'll say what I practice and what I hope is true, you know, in terms of the way we do it. And what I've seen is that we have better engagement and we have better kind of tenure from our team when we take the posture of preparing them for their next job. So I intentionally want to have a relationship with my team where I'm setting them up to develop their careers and their skill sets that set them up to do well in whatever career it is that they're looking forward to going to, or whatever their next job might be. So when I'm able to take that posture with them, then my relationship with them changes and the value they get from me is a lot higher. And hopefully the value they get from me is higher than what they might get from a different job. Now, there are a lot of other factors in play, right? The kind of work that they're doing, the salary and, total comp and all those things are factors as well, obviously. But if they're in an environment where they feel like they can learn and continue to grow, then that's a very big value proposition for why they should stay here, because that's an environment that is invested in them and their capacity and ability to grow. And I found that when we have done that in our organization, people have stayed for a long time, much longer than usual. And I think that makes a difference.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we've seen some surveys that says like people who are below 5 years experience, like they hop jobs very frequently, like maybe half a year, and maybe that's why senior designers are like, oh, I don't want to help other people train their talent, right?
I can't speak. Like you said, no, I can't speak to like what happens in aggregate and at scale. I can say what's true for me and our team and our practice in design leadership is, when we invest in our team, they invest in us. And I think when they start from that posture of generosity, I think they return that favor as well. And it is value for them, right? Because exactly as some people have mentioned here, a lot of teams don't invest in that. And when we choose to invest in that, people stay. So
that's a very good point.
Maybe I can add something that after hearing Stanley is that what I was saying earlier about like having to ask a lot of questions and making sure that there's appui, I don't remember what people are for UX all the way up to the executive ladder. It mostly applies to larger organizations, obviously, because I've also had like very good UX jobs where the organization wasn't mature, but it was a smaller organization, like 15 people, where if basically you kind of like get the CEO to back you, you can basically build your own UX practice and do it as you think it should be. And there's a lot of other like advantages for that. But so what I was saying was basically in large organizations where there's a more of an older culture and many departments, and you need to be much more careful. You can't really just go and ask one person and be free to go forward and kind of invent your work setting.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight one thing that you said that was not your main point, but I think it's really important, is that you mentioned, Felix, there about when design reports to the CEO, that's always when design does its best. When design reports to the CEO and you have broad influence over the organization and how decisions and strategies are developed and made, that's where design is at its most mature in terms of its impact and its practice. And so, that's a really, really good point. And for me as a design leader and like advocate within organizations, right, like that's what I constantly work towards, right, is getting design to have the influence at that level. And in a sense, at least a dotted line relationship with the CEO, right?
Other questions from the audience?
Let me double check. I hope that I didn't miss anybody. So the floor is open up, guys. If you have questions that I didn't call out, feel free to ask. Just unmute yourself, turn on your camera, and we're ready for you. Don't be shy.
Actually, maybe Stanley, I know you're hiring, so why don't you talk to us about that, right? Like any hiring plan?
Yes, please.
At Domain 7, we have a lot of hiring, a lot of growth that we're looking forward to in the next couple of years. So we have, I can't remember what's the latest numbers, but we've been doing hiring for the last 4 months, just like everyone else, going around a little bit. We have one more role that we're hiring for in experience design. So if you're a UX person who's interested in solving interesting problems in the public and private sectors, and I would like to hope so, is a fairly mature design organization. We have a spot for you on the Domain 7 design team. And we have one more role on the strategic design as well. So that one I'm really proud of. It's a new team that we're building around strategic design practices. And so that's about you showing up, in different organizations, public and private, often in the executive boardroom to build the case for design and have used design methods, driven by human insight to develop different types of corporate and business strategies. And so we get to set the stage for the work that comes after, the sort of design work that comes after. So it's some pretty exciting stuff. The team is constantly growing with offices in Vancouver, in Calgary, in Toronto, and in Europe as well. Our fingers are only stretching around some of those things. Yeah, we are open to emerging talent on the experience design side. So we have some that we're looking on there. I don't know what the latest numbers are. Our chief design officer is kind of working on some stuff around that space. But yeah, I think we would have one or two junior roles that we are looking for there. And strategic design side is mid to senior level kind of researchers with a strategy background.
How would people be able to reach you?
Yes, LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can look us up on domain7.com as well, obviously. I think our job postings on LinkedIn. So if you look up Domain7 on LinkedIn, the job postings are there as well. So you can take a look. I promise you that our JD is custom. I spent a lot of time writing it. It's not copy and paste. So you can take a look there, and hopefully it reflects well kind of the work that we're doing and, folks that we're looking for in those roles as well.
Okay. Any other last questions? We have like maybe around 5 more minutes for any discussions. Or Stanley, if you any other last thoughts you have for hirers who are aching right now, not being able to hire.
Yeah, I mean, for if you're looking to hire teams, I'll say like take on the teacher's mindset, the coach's mindset. I think there's so much talent out there that's not obvious. Technical skills are the easiest thing to teach. That's why boot camps can do it in 6 months. The mindsets and the human connection and the communication, those things are a lot harder to teach. So if you're ready to step in and help develop the core technical skills of emerging talent, I think there's a wealth of talent out there that you can access and you can tap into and you can work with as well. And I think for folks who are emerging talent who are looking for a new career in tech, especially in design is the one thing that a piece of advice I give a lot of folks is that this is purely personal. This comes from me and my heart and my approach to the work is that design often for me is not just work. It's not just a vocation. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of thinking. It's a mindset. It's a way of seeing the world. If you recognize that and are able to step into that and recognize that and kind of have that as a part of the way you approach problems anywhere in life, right? Or the way you approach relationships and the way you approach, different challenges that you see and whether in work or outside. When you're able to take on that perspective, right? It's not just a job, you do really well. And that's not to say, you're breaking down the separation of work-life balance. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, design at its best is when it really changes the way we see the world and the way we approach problems and the way we think about, different things and the way we realize that the common humanity that we have, the partnerships that we build, the relationships that we have, that we can learn from each other and from there find solutions. It's a beautiful thing that's valuable both in the marketplace, but in our daily lives as well. And when you can see that, you can hone your craft in all those different areas, you'll be an excellent designer in no time. So that would be my encouragement to you if you're early in your career.
Yeah, even in other events, some speakers have talked about career changes who are in retail, hospitality. Maybe, some of the hires here can be more open to, bringing up those talents who already have these soft skills and not just be focused on like, hard skills type of stuff. Okay. Daniel, do you want to talk about our next event?
Yeah, of course. So our next event is gonna be.
Oh, you're echoing. You're echoing somehow.
I do. Okay. My bad. Okay. So it's a monthly event. So as usual, the first week of every month, which is the Thursday, and I believe it will be on. Let me double check. May 5th. Yeah. So May 5th, we have another event inviting another amazing speakers, just like Stanley today, talking about the 3 attributes to become, to accelerate in your design career. We will be here for sure. And we try to line up more amazing events down the road. We have already all the way lined up to September, October. We're doing our best. So I hope you guys like it. And tonight is another amazing night. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us and also add Stanley on LinkedIn. He's looking for amazing talent. I would like to see if anybody have any more last questions, Elaine or volunteer team, before we close this
Well,
off.
maybe we can just put our meetup and Eventbrite links. So yeah, Celia is asking, how do I join these events?
Sorry, I think there was some questions coming from Himani.
Oh, we do?
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, please.
Himani, please go ahead.
Do you have it?
Hey, yeah, no, I haven't written yet, but yeah, I was just gonna write. I'm just asking the question on the other side, not really, you know, the person who is hiring. So let's say I have been asked from an employer that, you know, you'll be given an exercise where you'll be sharing your screen and you will be, I mean, they haven't given me any information yet, but they have scheduled me for next week. So is it absolutely fine for them to not let me know ahead of time? And there will be, you know, like surprises. Generally, you know, they do give so many exercises and we never, you know, hear back any of the feedback. I'm talking about my previous experiences. Even though right now I'm in a good position, but you know, when I'm interviewing with new companies, they all have different strategies. So what's your opinion on that?
I have a long rant on how ineffective design tests are. And I say that as someone who used to believe in it and done a lot of it. I think they're not very helpful in the interview context. At the very least, they should be at the very last stage when you're reasonably confident in a candidate and you kind of earn their time, right? To kind of participate in it. So I'll say in general, like I don't think they're very effective. I would say like it is a fair question for you to ask in advance. What are they looking to learn from you, you know, through that process and what they're looking for. Good interview processes, they don't play games. They're very transparent about what they're looking for and what they're looking for, what they're hoping to get out of certain processes and activities. And I think this will be one of them. In general, I'll say that a right expectation from a whiteboard exercise like that is not to an appropriate expectation is that you're not really going to find like a perfect solution or anything like that. They just want to look at your ability to navigate questions, navigate your ability to like think through a problem and to get to a reasonable kind of your thought process like through all of that, rather than the eventual solution that you end up with. So yeah. So in general, I'll say like it's not helpful. I don't think they do a lot. And like you point out your own experiences, it can be very inequitable. That's not great. So.
Got it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you feel comfortable with that type of, you know, whiteboard challenge, like if you feel you're being taken advantage of, then maybe it's not the type of company you want to join, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
How respectful they are, you know, about your time and all that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So previous experiences, like, you know, they gave me like design challenge for like, you know, 2 days. They gave me 2 days and I did so much. I'm pretty sure that I'm not good at everything. So, but at least they should have given any kind of feedback so that I can, you know, improve and, you know, move forward.
Yeah.
But
what you describe is exactly the problem with design tests, is that it's extremely inequitable, right? Like if you have a lot of time and you've, you know, no kids or whatever at home, yeah, sure, you can spend lots of time preparing for the activities. But if you have parents to take care of, kids to take care of, you know, people in your life who you're responsible for, you don't have the availability, then that diminishes your ability to, you know, spend time on it, right? So yeah, it's a really inequitable process, and I found them at the end of the day actually really unhelpful in the overall kind of application process as well. So I feel for you, and I concur with what Elaine was saying. Like there's a question there about, you know, their organization and their maturity in these practices and what it looks like, because it's pretty well established at this point that those activities are not helpful. I'll say Google and Facebook, as far as I know, they've taken, as far as their design interviews, they've taken away that step as well because it's not effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your time and, you know, answer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Great. I think we're out of time.
We're out of time,
Thank
definitely.
you so much for
just
standing.
before everybody stepping out, it's my favorite moment of the event. It's usually we like to do a group photo. so that we can have a nice memory on the social media as well. So please help me out to turn on your camera, and then one of my volunteers team will turn on the gallery view setting and do a screenshot. So prepare your best smile, put on your makeups, and I'm gonna count down from 3, 2, 1. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Do I hear Kacha?
I think
Okay.
we need another one. We have more people just got in.
Just more people just got in. Okay, let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. I think we got it.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and see you guys again in May, same time. Thank you so much, Stanley, and all the people who asked the questions. You guys are amazing.